Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me carefully. There comes a moment in every human life when the noise becomes unbearable. The noise of expectations, the noise of comparison, the noise of fear, the noise of pleasing others, the noise of pretending. And in that moment, if you are brave enough to be still, something deeper begins to speak. Not the voice of the crowd, not the voice of your wounds, not the voice of your masks. Something older, something wiser, something real. And that is the voice of your own soul. You have spent too long being pulled in every direction by what the world wants from you. Too long shrinking yourself to fit into rooms that were never built for your spirit. Too long wearing a face that earns applause while your heart remains hungry. Too long chasing acceptance while neglecting the truth that lives quietly inside you. And now, whether you understand it or not, life is asking you a question that cannot be ignored anymore. Will you continue to live as a stranger to yourself? Or will you finally wake up to the real you? Most people never awaken. They live, they work, they scroll, they perform, they survive, they repeat. They follow the path that was handed to them by family, culture, fear, habit, and the expectations of others. They build lives that look successful from the outside while feeling empty on the inside. They mistake activity for meaning, attention for love, and comfort for peace. They become experts at hiding their pain, but they never heal it. They become skilled at managing appearances, but they never meet themselves. And in the end, they do not discover who they are. They discover only how well they learn to disappear. But you were not born to disappear. You were born to become conscious. And becoming conscious is not easy. It is not soft. It is not decorative. It is not a motivational quote on a bright screen or a passing burst of emotion after a good night's sleep. To become conscious is to look into the mirror and refuse to lie. It is to stop calling your fear my personality. It is to stop calling your pain my fate. It is to stop calling your mask my identity. It is to ask with courage and with honesty, what part of me am I refusing to see? Because the truth is this, the life you are living today is deeply connected to the parts of yourself you have ignored. Every unhealed wound leaves a mark on your relationships. Every rejected truth leaves a scar on your decisions. Every suppressed emotion finds another way to speak. And what you do not face within yourself will eventually be faced in your life as conflict, confusion, obsession, fatigue, or suffering. That is not punishment. That is the psyche demanding attention. That is the soul demanding integration. That is the unconscious knocking on the door of your awareness saying, there is more to you than this. And there is. There is more to you than your failures. There is more to you than your trauma. There is more to you than your achievements. There is more to you than the labels people gave you when they did not know your depth. There is more to you than the role you play in the family, at work, in society, or online. There is more to you than the version of yourself that you have shown because you were afraid of being rejected. There is a real self inside you that has been waiting patiently beneath the layers of performance, hurt, and survival. It has not died. It has not vanished. It has been waiting for your attention. It has been waiting for your courage. It has been waiting for your silence, because only in silence can the truth begin to speak. So let me tell you something that may disturb you, but may also free you. Not everything you call you is truly you. Some of what you believe about yourself was inherited. Some was learned in pain. Some was constructed in defense. Some was built to survive a world that did not always feel safe. You learned how to be agreeable so you would not be abandoned. You learned how to be strong so you would not be hurt. You learned how to be funny so you would not be seen. You learned how to be successful so you could earn the right to exist. You learned how to be quiet so you would not be judged. You learned how to be perfect so nobody could accuse you of being broken. And perhaps those strategies helped you once. Perhaps they saved you. Perhaps they were necessary in a certain season of your life. But survival is not the same as life. Protection is not the same as wholeness. and a mask that once helped you endure can become a prison if you wear it too long. This is why so many people feel tired in a way that sleep cannot fix. They are not merely physically tired, they are internally divided. One part of them says, be what is expected. Another part says, be honest. One part says, hide your pain. Another part says, please see me. One part says, stay safe. Another part says, grow. And when a human being is split against himself, exhaustion becomes inevitable. Inner conflict drains more energy than hard work ever will. The real you is not found by adding more noise, it is found by removing the lies. And the first lie you must remove is the lie that says you must be flawless before you are worthy. Listen to me. Perfection is a mask, and masks eventually suffocate the person wearing them. The world does not need another perfect image. It needs a human being who is real. A human being who can say, yes, I have been afraid. A human being who can say, yes, I have failed. A human being who can say, yes, I have darkness in me, but I am willing to understand it. A human being who does not confuse honesty with weakness. A human being who knows that self-knowledge is more powerful than self-deception. You see, the shadow is not just the ugly part of you. It is also the neglected part of you. It is everything you have pushed away because it did not fit the image you wanted to maintain. It contains anger you refuse to feel, desire you refuse to admit, grief you refuse to mourn, envy you refuse to confront, and even gifts you refuse to claim because they made you feel too visible, too different, too responsible, or too alive. The shadow is not only where your danger lives, it is also where your unused life force lives. And this is the great mistake many people make. They try to destroy the shadow instead of integrating it. But what you suppress does not disappear. It becomes distorted. It leaks out in your tone, your choices, your habits, your avoidance, your procrastination, your resentment, your need to control, your need to be admired, your sudden anger, your silent withdrawal. You may call it bad luck. You may call it bad timing. You may call it stress. But often, beneath the surface, it is unacknowledged inner truth seeking expression. That is why self-awareness is not optional. It is not a luxury reserved for philosophers, therapists, or spiritual teachers. It is a necessity for anyone who wants to live with strength and clarity. If you do not know yourself, life will keep teaching you through repetition. If you refuse to listen inwardly, the same lesson will return in different forms. The same heartbreak, the same disappointment, the same pattern, the same empty success, the same self-sabotage, the same relationship conflict, the same sense that something important is always just out of reach. Life repeats what the soul has not understood. So ask yourself honestly, what keeps repeating in my life? What pattern keeps returning? What pain keeps resurfacing? What am I trying to outrun? What am I pretending not to know? Those questions are not comfortable, but they are sacred. Because the beginning of wisdom is not certainty, it is honesty. And honesty can be terrifying because honesty strips away the story that has kept you safe. Yet it is only when the story breaks that truth can enter. The person who clings too tightly to his image cannot grow. The person who clings too tightly to approval cannot awaken. The person who clings too tightly to comfort cannot become whole. Growth always demands a sacrifice. Sometimes that sacrifice is pride. Sometimes it is a belief. Sometimes it is a relationship built on performance. Sometimes it is the identity you thought would protect you forever. But what is sacrificed in the name of truth is never lost. It is transformed. And transformation is the real purpose of your life. Not merely success, Not merely wealth, not merely status, not merely admiration. Transformation. You are here to become more conscious than you were yesterday, more honest than you were last year, more integrated than you were in the past. You are here to take what is fragmented in you and make it whole. You are here to bring light to what was hidden, language to what was silent, and meaning to what once felt like suffering without purpose. Do not underestimate the dignity of this journey. The world may celebrate those who appear polished, but the soul honors those who are willing to descend, those who are willing to confront their inner chaos, those who are willing to sit with discomfort instead of running from it, those who are willing to say, I do not yet know who I am, but I will find out. That statement may seem small, but it is revolutionary. Because most people are terrified of not knowing, they rush to define themselves too quickly. They grab an identity the way a drowning person grabs a branch. They say, this is me, when what they really mean is, this is the mask I can defend. But the real self cannot be reduced to a slogan. It cannot be fully captured by an occupation, a relationship status, a social role, or a public image. The real self is deeper, more mysterious, more alive, more paradoxical than that. And perhaps that is why so many people feel lost. Not because they lack a path, but because they have not yet become the kind of person who can walk a real path. A meaningful life does not begin with the perfect map. It begins with the willingness to be guided by truth. It begins when you stop asking only, what will make me look successful? And start asking, what will make me whole? Whole. That word matters. Wholeness is not the same as goodness in the shallow sense. Wholeness includes the light and the dark, the strong and the vulnerable, the polished and the unfinished. Wholeness means you no longer need to exile parts of yourself in order to be acceptable. It means you can hold complexity without collapsing. It means you can admit your contradictions without shame. It means you are no longer performing a one-dimensional identity for people who never knew the full breadth of your soul. To wake up to the real you is to stop being ruled by fragmentation. Fragmentation says, I must be this in one place and that in another. Fragmentation says, I must hide this feeling because it makes me weak. Fragmentation says, I must suppress this desire because it might upset others. Fragmentation says, I must never fail because failure will expose me. Fragmentation says, I must keep moving so I never have to feel. Fragmentation says, I must keep entertaining myself so I never have to hear myself. But wholeness says something different. Wholeness says, I can face what is true. Wholeness says, I can learn from my pain. Wholeness says, I can understand my anger without becoming my anger. Wholeness says, I can acknowledge my weakness without being destroyed by it. Wholeness says, I can be humble without being small. Wholeness says, I can be powerful without becoming cruel. Wholeness says, I can be wounded and still become wise. That is the awakening. And awakening is not dramatic in the way movies make it seem. It does not always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it arrives quietly in a room where you finally stop pretending. Sometimes it arrives in the middle of a sleepless night when you realize you can no longer live by borrowed values. Sometimes it arrives after heartbreak, after loss, after failure, after humiliation, after success that turned out to be empty. Sometimes it arrives when you are tired of living as an actor in a play written by someone else. Sometimes it arrives when you look at your own life and admit with trembling honesty, this is not me anymore. That moment is sacred. Because the moment you stop identifying with what is false, the real self has room to breathe. And once the real self begins to breathe, it will ask things of you. It will ask you to be brave in ways you did not expect. It will ask you to leave relationships that keep you asleep. It will ask you to stop seeking validation from people who cannot see you. It will ask you to mourn the version of your life that could have been, and then to build the one that can still be. It will ask you to become disciplined, not as punishment, but as devotion. It will ask you to endure the loneliness that comes when you choose truth over popularity. It will ask you to trust your inner life even when the outer world does not understand it. And yes, that is difficult. But there is a dignity in difficult things when they are true. What is easy is often shallow. What is comfortable is often temporary. What is approved by everyone is often already dead. But what is true, even when painful, has life in it. It may hurt you at first, but in the end, it will make you stronger, cleaner, clearer, and more whole. Do not fear the moment when your old life begins to fall away. Sometimes breakdown is not the end of you. Sometimes it is the collapse of a false structure that was never meant to hold your soul. Sometimes the anxiety, confusion, restlessness, or dissatisfaction you feel is not proof that you are failing. It is proof that your old identity is no longer sufficient. Something inside you is demanding a larger life, a truer life, a more honest life. And when that happens, you have a choice. You can numb it. You can deny it. You can distract yourself until the feeling passes. You can go back to sleep and call it peace. Or you can listen. Listening may not bring immediate comfort, but it will bring direction. It will show you where you have been betraying yourself. It will reveal where your energy has been leaking. It will expose the bargain you made with fear. It will show you which parts of your life are built on truth and which parts are built on performance. And though that revelation may sting, it is a mercy, because what is hidden rules you. What is seen begins to lose its power over you. The person who can see his own fear is no longer wholly controlled by it. The person who can see his own envy is no longer blindly possessed by it. The person who can see his own insecurity can begin to heal it. The person who can see his own emptiness can begin to fill it with meaning rather than distractions. The person who can see his own darkness can stop projecting it onto the world, and that is one of the greatest freedoms a human being can ever know. Projection is a prison. When you do not know your own inner world, you will blame the outer world for your unrest. You will assume other people are the source of every discomfort. You will turn strangers into enemies, partners into mirrors, and obstacles into personal insults. You will say, "They made me feel this way," when in truth they touched an old wound that had been waiting for healing. This does not mean other people never hurt us. They do. Life does. But if you never examine what in you was activated, you remain at the mercy of everything and everyone around you. A conscious life begins when you reclaim your projections. That means you stop giving away your power to fantasy. You stop idealizing people as saviors. You stop demonizing people as monsters. You stop using the outside world as an excuse not to do your inner work. You become responsible for your own meaning, your own reactions, your own healing, your own growth. Responsibility is not a burden when it is understood correctly. Responsibility means the ability to respond. And the more conscious you become, the more freely you can respond to life rather than simply react to it. You pause before anger consumes you. You pause before fear dictates your choices. You pause before loneliness drives you into self-betrayal. You pause before hunger for approval leads you away from your truth. In that pause, something sacred occurs. The automatic self loosens its grip. The deeper self steps forward. And with that, your life begins to change. That is how real power is born. Not from domination, not from image, not from control, from consciousness. A conscious person is not someone who never struggles. A conscious person is someone who struggles with awareness. He sees what is happening inside him. He does not confuse every passing emotion with destiny. He does not confuse every wound with identity. He does not confuse every thought with truth. He learns to observe, to question, to reflect, to integrate. He becomes less ruled by impulse and more guided by meaning. And meaning is what the soul hungers for. You can feed the body and still starve the person. You can entertain the mind and still leave the spirit empty. You can accumulate possessions and still feel poor inside. You can be admired and still feel unknown. You can be surrounded and still feel alone. Because the deepest hunger in human life is not for noise, pleasure, or performance. It is for meaning. It is for contact with what is real. It is for a life that makes sense from the inside out. So let me ask you plainly, what gives your life meaning when no one is watching? Not what impresses others, not what makes you look important, not what sounds good in conversation. What gives your life meaning when you are alone with your thoughts, your memories, your conscience, and your soul? This question will reveal you. It will reveal whether you are living from center or from distraction. It will reveal whether your life is anchored or scattered. It will reveal whether your choices are serving your becoming or merely soothing your fear. And once you know the answer, you cannot pretend you do not know. That is the danger and the gift of awakening. Awakening costs you illusion, but in return, it gives you reality. And reality, though not always pleasant, is far kinder than illusion in the long run. Because illusion asks you to keep performing forever. Reality asks you to grow. Illusion asks you to keep hiding. Reality asks you to become visible. Illusion asks you to stay the same. Reality asks you to transform. Transformation is not a one-time event. It is a way of living. It means you become willing, every day, to meet yourself again, to notice what has changed, to admit what no longer fits, to grieve what was lost, to appreciate what remains, to choose what is true even when it is inconvenient, to keep going even when the path is unclear, to trust that the unseen self is forming in the darkness, just as a seed forms beneath the soil before it can ever be seen above it. That seed image matters, because growth begins below the surface. The world sees the flower later. The soul begins in hidden work. There are seasons in your life when no one can see what is happening in you, and you may even doubt that anything is happening at all. But in those silent seasons, your roots are deepening, your old certainties are loosening, your false identities are weakening, your inner foundation is being tested and strengthened. Do not despise those seasons. They are often the most important ones. Many people panic when life becomes quiet because silence forces them to hear themselves. But silence is where the real you becomes audible. When the distractions fade, your soul has a chance to speak. When the applause stops, your own values can be heard. When the crowd leaves, your inner life becomes impossible to ignore. And if you have the courage to remain present in that silence, you will discover that you were never truly alone. You were being invited into relationship with the deepest part of yourself. That relationship is the beginning of freedom. For if you do not know yourself, you will remain easily controlled by fear, trend, opinion, and impulse. But if you know yourself, truly know yourself, then the world may still shake you, but it will not own you. Criticism will still sting, but it will not define you. Failure will still hurt, but it will not end you. Success will still tempt you, but it will not deceive you. Love will still move you, but it will not erase you. You become rooted, and a rooted human being is difficult to uproot. This is why inner work is not self-indulgence. It is self-liberation. Do not believe the lie that looking inward is weakness or vanity. The refusal to look inward is what keeps people trapped. To study your own motives, to question your assumptions, to understand your pain, to identify your patterns, to face your darkness, to seek truth within yourself. This is not weakness. This is courage of the highest order. Anyone can repeat slogans. Anyone can pretend. Anyone can avoid. Anyone can numb. But to stand before yourself without decoration, that is rare. And rare things shape the future. So today, I am asking you not merely to feel inspired, but to become honest. Ask yourself where you have been living on autopilot. Ask yourself where you have confused habit for identity. Ask yourself what truth you have been postponing because it would require change. Ask yourself what part of your life is asking to be healed, released, or reimagined. Ask yourself what you have been calling just the way I am when it is really just the way you learned to survive. Then listen, because the answer is already there, waiting in the quiet. You do not need to become someone else to become real. You need to become more fully yourself, more conscious, more integrated, more truthful, more awake, less divided, less afraid, less dependent on the opinions of those who cannot carry the weight of your becoming. The real you is not hidden because it is absent. It is hidden because it has been crowded out. Crowded out by fear. Crowded out by noise. Crowded out by the need to belong. Crowded out by old pain. Crowded out by other people's expectations. Crowded out by the exhausting work of pretending. But now the time has come to clear the space. Clear the space with honesty. Clear the space with discipline. Clear the space with reflection. Clear the space with solitude. Clear the space with forgiveness. Clear the space with action. And do not wait for perfect conditions. The real you does not awaken when everything is easy. It awakens when you decide that truth matters more than comfort. When you decide that wholeness matters more than applause. When you decide that your life is too precious to be lived as a performance. There is a life inside you that your fear has not yet permitted. There is a wisdom inside you that your busyness has not yet heard. There is a strength inside you that your suffering has not yet destroyed. There is a future inside you that your doubt has not yet cancelled. And there is a self inside you, deep, hidden, enduring and waiting, that knows the way forward if only you will stop drowning it out. Ladies and gentlemen, do not waste your life becoming impressive while remaining unknown to yourself. Do not waste your years building a tower of achievements on a foundation of inner emptiness. Do not waste your spirit trying to please everyone and ending up as a stranger in your own body. Do not waste your courage by postponing the conversation you need to have with your own soul. The world does not need your mask. The world needs your truth. Your family needs your presence. Your future needs your discipline. Your pain needs your attention. Your shadow needs your honesty. Your soul needs your participation. And the real you needs to be called forth now. Not tomorrow. Not after the next success. Not after the next apology. Not after the next job. Not after the next relationship. Now. Because life is not waiting for you to become perfect. Life is waiting for you to become real. So wake up. Wake up from the sleep of approval. Wake up from the sleep of fear. Wake up from the sleep of comparison. Wake up from the sleep of pretending. Wake up from the sleep of numbness. Wake up from the sleep of borrowed identity. Wake up to the fact that your suffering may be trying to make you conscious. Wake up to the fact that your confusion may be asking you to go deeper. Wake up to the fact that your loneliness may be calling you back to yourself. Wake up to the fact that your inner life is not an inconvenience. It is the center of your destiny. And when you wake up, do not rush away from what you see. Stay, listen, learn, integrate, heal. Be patient with yourself. Be brave with yourself. Be honest with yourself. Because the real you will not arrive as a polished image. It will arrive as a presence, a clarity, a quiet power, a grounded yes to life, a willingness to walk forward even without complete certainty, because the soul knows that truth is enough for the next step. That is how a human being becomes whole. That is how a life becomes meaningful. That is how the real you is awakened. And once awakened, you will never again be satisfied with a shallow existence. You will not be content with mere appearance. You will not be easily seduced by empty applause. You will not trade your conscience for convenience. You will not surrender your inner truth for the comfort of being liked. You will become, at last, a person who can stand in the world with eyes open, heart open, and spirit alive. That is the urgent message. That is the call. That is the awakening. And it begins the moment you decide that you are done living as a shadow of yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, the real you is not gone. The real you is waiting. Go find that self. Go meet that self. Go become that self. And never ever look away again.